Welcome back to Book Summary 5. I'm Sammy, and today we're closing the circle with Air by John Boyne, the final novel in his Elemental Quartet. If water mourned in silence, earth dug into the roots of trauma, and fire burned with public judgment and self-reflection, then air is the breath after the storm. It is spacious, searching, and strangely serene, a quiet reckoning that floats through memory, regret, and ultimately forgiveness. This book isn't about drama. It's about healing. And today, I'll walk you through the entire journey, so you feel like you have read it cover to cover. Our protagonist this time is Cecil, an aging Irish man who lives in Prague. He's spent decades there, far from his native Ireland, far from most people, really. Cecil is gay, single, and seemingly content to live out his final years in quiet solitude. He's a former academic, a retired professor of linguistics, who spends his time reading, walking, observing, and above all, avoiding the world. But as the story unfolds, we learn that Cecil's detachment isn't serenity, it's avoidance. He has buried parts of himself so deeply that he's nearly lost them altogether. He's not just isolated, he's emotionally starved. And when we meet him, he's begun to feel the weight of it. Not just loneliness, but the gnawing sense that time is running out to understand, to reconcile, to let go. Unlike the other novels in the quartet, Air isn't centered on a dramatic external crisis. Instead, it floats between past and present, thought and memory, as Cecil begins to revisit the defining moments of his life. These aren't memories he seeks out. They arrive uninvited, carried on the wind of long walks through the city or half-finished conversations in his mind. We travel back with him to the Ireland of his youth, Catholic, conservative, and stifling. Cecil knew he was different from a young age. He was sensitive, intellectually curious, and drawn to boys. In that environment, it meant shame, silence, and sometimes violence. His father couldn't understand him. His teachers punished him. And so he fled emotionally first and then physically across borders, languages, even identities. In Prague, Cecil built a life of quiet dignity. He had lovers, friends, students. But always there was a distance. He loved from afar. He kept people at arm's length. Even his most meaningful relationship, with a Czech man named Tomáš, was defined by restraint. They were partners for years, but Cecil never fully let himself be vulnerable, even with the one person who wanted nothing more than to know him deeply. Now, decades later, Tomáš is gone, and Cecil is left with his ghosts. The people he pushed away. The family he never reconciled with. The truths he never dared to speak aloud. He begins to write letters, not to send, but to finally articulate what he's held inside. To his father, to Tomáš, even to himself. These letters float through the narrative like breath, gentle, searching, and full of ache. Cecil also begins volunteering at a refugee center, tutoring young people trying to rebuild their lives after displacement. It's here, in this unexpected place, that he finds something resembling purpose. These students challenge him, not intellectually but emotionally. They ask questions he isn't used to answering. They pull him into community. Slowly, he begins to exhale. There's a young woman in particular, an Afghan refugee named Layla, who forms an unlikely bond with Cecil. She's fierce, funny, and unapologetically herself. Through her, Cecil sees what he might have been, had he grown up in a world that allowed it. And in guiding her through the challenges of language and identity, he begins to rediscover his own voice. Throughout the novel, Boyne plays with the motif of air, not just as a natural element, but as a metaphor for space, freedom, and the things we cannot hold. Air is what we need to live but cannot see. Its breath, presence, and the invisible threads that connect us. Cecil learns slowly that to breathe fully, you must first release what's trapped inside. By the end of the novel, there is no grand transformation, no sudden redemption or dramatic confrontation. What Air gives us instead is gentler, a man who finally forgives his younger self. A man who learns to sit with grief without letting it suffocate him. A man who lets someone in, even just a little, and feels the warmth of being seen. He writes one final letter, not angry, not apologetic, just honest. He folds it, sets it aside, and steps outside into the early morning. The air is cool, full of promise. For the first time in a long time, he doesn't feel like he's holding his breath. Air is a quiet triumph. It's about aging not as decline, but as clarity. It's about memory not as burden, but as map. And it reminds us that even in the final chapters of life, there's still time to open the window, to take a breath, and maybe, even now, begin again. Thanks for being here with me on Book Summary 5. This completes our journey through John Boyne's Elemental Quartet, water, earth, fire, and now air. What a stunning arc of storytelling, each novel a distinct mood and message, yet together forming something truly profound. Until next time, take a breath, let go of the past, and happy reading.